Welcome everyone to Lunch with Laurie, where I schedule time to speak with leaders in our industry to hear how they're navigating their career and their perspectives on leadership, what's going on in the world, and our goal is to pique your interest and to challenge your thinking. So today my guest is Dr. Sandra Horning. I'm so excited to speak with her today. She is our HBA Woman of the Year, and my conversations with her are always so rich in content. Now, we posted Sandra's bio, and I encourage you to read her many accomplishments, and I'll just focus on a few things. She has been a beloved medical oncologist to her patients, and in fact, was named the best doctor in America consecutively for 10 years. She excelled in academics as a tenured professor at Stanford University, authored more than 300 peer-reviewed journal articles, books, etc., and rocked it in her role as chief medical officer and head of global product development at Roche and Genentech. She is now an entrepreneur, a co-founder of EQRX, and serves on multiple boards of directors. Hello, Sandra, and welcome to lunch.
Hello, Laurie. Great to be with you.
So happy to see you. I know you're coming from the West Coast. I always enjoy starting the conversation with a critical question, what's for lunch? And I know you're actually from a small town in Iowa. So what would be a typical favorite that you'd have on the lunch menu if you were back home?
Well, Laurie, I've got to be honest with you. Lunch was not much. Always for me, it's been a little bit more of a refueling exercise rather than a culinary experience. What I do remember about my sack lunch that I took to school is that it was usually some leftover roast beef between 2 slices of Wonder Bread. Now, doesn't that sound good?
Mm-mm. So your palate has changed, I understand.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness, things have come a long way. So let's dig in. Sandra, you now serve on several boards. So what sort of advice do you have for women who are thinking about wanting to get a role on a board?
Yeah. Well, I'm really enjoying my service on boards, and the advice that I would give, which I had when I started this journey, is first of all, think about your value and how to articulate it. What are you going to contribute to boards? They're looking for your cumulative experience and wisdom, and you don't have to be a CEO. The second thing is to learn how boards work, how are members selected. And you might even want to consider participating in a program like Women in Bio's Boardroom Ready program. And the most important advice, I think, is networking, to build and maintain and leverage that network because that's how it all happens. I would also say that, for me, there are times when I've wondered, do I belong? And I like to think about that old Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote that women belong wherever decisions are being made.
That is a great, well, and I think almost anything that woman said, I have written down somewhere. She was pretty amazing. And one of the things I think about, Sandra, because I'm in work right now, and I'm wondering what it is like to move to the other side of the fence where now you are the board member. So can you speak to what it's like serving on a board versus being an executive in a company?
Sure. Well, I think I'm on a journey here. I'm still a little bit of a newbie. And, like most things, I like to dig into it and really become a bit of a student and learn the art of directorship. But, I think first and foremost, you're joining a team. And this is a team that's really looking out for the company, but also for shareholders and the broader stakeholders. And you change your focus from sort of the day-to-day operations and management that you had previously. For me, it was discovering, developing, delivering new products, to really focusing on corporate strategy everything that's governance, and then taking that outside in objective perspective so you can really ask good generative questions. That's when, I identify a really good board member. I've also liked this saying that I heard somewhere, that it's moving from being hands-on to noses in, but hands out. I think that's a good way to capture being a board member.
Very visual. I do like that. And Sandra, one of the things that I am always amazed by you is you study. You really become a student of whatever it is you're working on. And the other thing that I know about you is that you have such a passion for diversity. And I love if you could tell me, why is this such a passion for you? And perhaps what you've done recently that could help us to understand how you've been able to get more diversity, perhaps in a clinical trial or something like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Laurie. I think I've always been really passionate about gender diversity, and like most things, that starts at home, and might be because I have an older brother. But I'd really credit my colleagues at Genentech for my awakening, if you will, about the importance of diversity and inclusion in clinical trials. And that was really the genesis of an effort that we started on advancing inclusive research. And when I think about this, from the standpoint of what does it take, I think it takes commitment to really be intentional that your clinical trials are indeed going to represent the population for which, let's say, a new medicine is intended. It's commitment, it's intention, it's follow through. And you're right, like with many other things, I began to be really curious about it and study it.
That it seems so simple as a concept that our clinical trials should represent the end population, but I don't know that we have had that institutionalized in how we've done development. So I'm so pleased that you understood that, the company understood it, and you really made that happen.
Laurie, maybe one thing I could say is, it's not always convenient to go forward doing this. And an example, that I've had on my recent board experience, and it's something that, I'm really proud of. As a Moderna board member, we made a commitment to diversity in, probably one of the most important trials in history, the COVID phase 3 vaccine trial. And we actually slowed enrollment of the trial to ensure that there was adequate representation of minorities. And we accomplished that with 11,000 people of color on that pivotal study, representing 37% of the population, which is representative of the US population. But it took that commitment and follow through to really get it done.
Oh, I commend you and Moderna for making that sort of, everyone was like, push, go get to market, but you had that bigger picture in mind, which makes total sense. And speaking about the vaccine and the pandemic, it is causing more of us to work from home. And data now is showing that women, and especially women of color, are disproportionately impacted. But whether it's job losses or more pressure to do their jobs and handling homeschooling with their child next to them while they're still doing their work. And so what are you thinking, and if you have your crystal ball that you see on the horizon for women when we're starting to change this definition of workspace and workplace?
Yeah, it's such an important issue and excellent question. And, I think I, like others, have more questions than answers. But I do think it starts out with just a fundamental belief that business and society cannot afford to lose the talent of women. And to try to address what's going on, I think it's listening to women and their stories who are going through this, and then beginning to really reimagine what work looks like. How flexible can it be? How different can it be? What resources are needed, financial and otherwise? And then how can we as a kind of a community of allies and advocates provide what is necessary not only in the corporate world, but in the larger public arena to support this. It's not a nice to have, it's a have to have.
It is essential. I agree with you. And what I'm hearing you say is actually empathy in action, because you are thinking about what is going on in your workers' lives and then trying as a company to meet those needs. So work can keep going, business can keep going, and your employees stay with you and are much happier with the environment and that their company is doing for them. So as I'm thinking about your career, and you obviously are incredibly successful woman, but I'm sure there have been some challenges for you that you faced over the years in personal or professional life, and would appreciate it if you would be willing to share an example, perhaps of something that you faced that helped you to be a better leader in the end.
Well, like most of us, I've had some ups and downs in my career. I think one of the most memorable was as I was getting a little bit more successful and more prominent, rightly or wrongly, I perceived that my boss was resentful of my success. And my initial reaction was to kind of work around this. And eventually I made a career change, a pretty definitive and courageous choice. But, I thought a lot about leadership after that. I thought specifically about the difference between being maybe the best athlete on the field to becoming a coach. And I started doing a lot of reading and studying leadership in the same way that I would be, reading about science or oncology. And the kind of change in my focus and the change in my goal was to really begin to think of your success as my success and my success as your success. And I think when you think about that as a leader, and that is your focus, your job is to make other people successful, then you really begin to take seriously about getting the right people into the right job, giving them the right resources and the autonomy to go forward. I once had a boss who said that he hired people whose autograph he'd like to have. And I think it's a really good way of thinking about hiring the best people and letting them go and helping them to be successful.
Yeah, a rising tide raises all ships. So if you're helping all of those around you, the team is going to be that much more successful, as are you. So it's Sandra, you are just such an amazing woman. I could speak with you forever, but thank you so much for spending your lunch break with me.
Thank you, Laurie.
It is my pleasure. So please join me next month when I'll be chatting with Bouquet Grau, Head of Corporate Strategy, Biogen, and past chair of the HBA Global Board of Directors, and we can learn how she has made such a rapid progression in her career. This has been Lunch with Laurie. I hope it was nourishment that refueled your leadership tank. Until next time, bon appetit.